All right, in this video, I want to talk about the next topic that we're going to get into, and it's special triangles. And so why we call them special triangles is kind of how they're created. This is my terrible attempt at creating a square, all right? And so we know a square has all four sides are the same and all the angles are 90 degrees. Now, what happens if we take that same square and we cut it in half to create two triangles? So what ends up happening now is we have a right triangle. Okay, so here's our right angle. Now, this is actually called a right isosceles triangle. Now, we don't call it right isosceles in special right triangle terms. What we call it is called a 45, 45, 90. So all the angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. We have a right angle, and that means that the other two angles have to add up to 90. And because it's an isosceles triangle, those two angles have to be the same, which makes them both 45 degrees. So a 45, 45, 90 is created by a square that gets cut in half diagonally. All right. So now what we're going to talk about is naming the parts of this triangle. All right, so this part right here is our hypotenuse because it's the side that does not touch the 90-degree angle. This would be called a leg, and so would this. All right, so that is the first special triangle that we're going to talk about. Again, it's called a 45, 45, 90. So 45, 45, 90. That's what we call it. It's formed by a square cut in half. And it has two parts. It has legs that are congruent in length, and it has a hypotenuse. Okay. Now, the next particular special triangle that we're going to talk about is it comes from an equilateral triangle. It's going to be my attempt here at an equilateral triangle. And we know that equilateral triangles, all the sides are the same. All right, so what we're going to do in this case is we're actually going to cut the triangle in half from the vertex straight down. Now, in equilateral triangle, all the angles add up to 60 degrees because it's 180 divided by 3. Okay, so there's 60, 60, and that means that this whole thing up here would also be 60. Now, I just said we cut it in half. So what that means now is that this little angle right there is half of 60. So this is 30. And if you guys remember back to some of the triangle properties we talked about, if we cut an isosceles triangle in half like this also creates a right angle down here. So this particular triangle now, okay, is called a 30, which is up here, 60, 90. This is called a 30, 60, 90. And there's three parts to a 30, 60, 90. We have a hypotenuse. This is called the short side, and this is called the long side. Now, the short side is opposite the small angle. The long side is opposite the bigger angle. So that's how you know which is which. It's important to understand where these come from and to identify the side lengths by name because they're going to lead to shortcuts that we're going to talk about.